Welcome to the Tri-County Report. I'm Paul Roberts from WEEU, joined again by Dennis Weller from the Reading Eagle. And of course, the big story in the Pac-10, Dennis, the streak has finally come to an end. Methacton beats Pottsgrove. They had won 25 straight league games. How big of a win is this for the Methacton program?
Well, obviously a really big win when they have proven now that they can beat one of the top teams in the league. And they did it by a fairly wide margin. And actually, Methacton's no surprise, I guess, because the only team in the league they've lost to is Perk Valley, and they almost came back and beat them. So.
Methacton's quarterback, Connor Derrickson, we've talked about him before. He had another really good game, 3 touchdowns, 150 yards. As far as most valuable players in the Pac-10, I imagine he's on the short list somewhere.
He would be up there along with Brandon Leecraft of Spring-Ford, the top 2 that come to mind right now, yes.
Pottsgrove can't dwell on this loss. No rest for the weary, as they say, because they have Spring-Ford coming up next. Do you think Pottsgrove will be able to bounce back?
Well, I was talking to Rick Pennypacker actually this morning for a preview story, and he said they realized they have to make some adjustments, and they've made some adjustments, especially on offense, because both of their losses, they only scored 7 points each game. Now, you know, you're used to Pottsgrove scoring 40, 50 points every week, and that's not happening this year.
You mentioned Leecraft, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns in Spring-Ford's win over Boyertown. You covered that game. What did you think of his performance? Well,
he was quite impressive, and the number of receivers that he went to, I believe 9 players caught passes, and it seemed to me that at the beginning of the game he wasn't going to the usual people because they were probably well covered, so he went to these other 5 or 6 guys. So then Boyertown had to start covering them, and that opened up the usual guys, and they looked like just a really tough team to defend.
It was a bit of a strange game because Boyertown led 14-0, and then Spring-Ford went on to win 44-22. What changed after the first quarter?
Maybe Spring-Ford woke up. I'm not sure. Spring-Ford has had trouble starting in 3 out of its 4 games this year. Against Boyertown, they were able to come back. Against some other teams they weren't. So that's a big point of emphasis for Spring-Ford this week, to be ready to go right from the opening kickoff this week against Pottsgrove.
Boyertown hosts Owen J. Roberts this week. Both these teams are 1-3. What's your feeling on that matchup?
Well, Boyertown has certainly shown signs of having some good players and being able to play well, but sometimes they've had trouble with penalties, last week with turnovers. If they can clean all of that up at the same time, they can give some teams a battle. And Owen J, I think they've had some injury problems, and they're just struggling, period. So we'll see whether or not they can bounce back.
You covered Pottstown's big win over Phoenixville, and it seemed like it was the Gary Wise show again. I mean,
right.
He really carries that team.
Yes, he can. He can make long runs out of nothing plays, and he can be very deceptive in that option offense they have. And all the games I've seen them, they've only had 3 different people run the ball. And this past week, I believe he had 10 pass attempts, which is a lot for him. So you'd think it would be easy to stop Pottstown because of that, but when Wise, Wise, very athletic quarterback, he can just do things all on his own.
Pottstown has a much tougher test this week against Perk Valley. Can they hang around in that game?
Well, that would be a good test to see how Pottstown has improved or not improved since the first couple weeks. I don't know. Again, with Pottstown having Gary Wise and a couple other guys on offense, and the Pottstown defense will really be tested. They played really well against Phoenixville, had a couple of interceptions, but it's going to be a tough assignment for them.
And what games will you be covering?
I will be covering the big Spring-Ford at Pottsgrove game on Friday night.
Dumb question on my part, I guess. Thanks for your time, Dennis.
Okay, you're welcome.
This has been the Tri-County Report for Dennis Weller. I'm Paul Roberts from WEEU.